It was one of those summer evenings when the air feels heavy, the crickets sing louder than usual, and you can tell a storm is brewing. My wife, Emily, was 8 months pregnant, and we were preparing for a quiet evening at home. The babies. Nursery was almost finished, the little crib already set up with pale blue sheets, and I had just grilled some burgers out on the deck, but all of that calm was shattered within minutes. Emily clutched her stomach, her face twisted with pain, and I knew instantly something was wrong. "Tom," she gasped, "we need to go now." My heart nearly stopped. She wasn't due for another few weeks, but I wasn't about to argue with her instincts. I called 911 immediately. Within minutes, the wailing sirens of an ambulance cut through the evening air. Racing down our quiet suburban street, 2 paramedics jumped out, got calm but quick in their movements. They gently loaded Emily into the ambulance while I grabbed her. Hospital bag. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, some stepping outside to see what was happening. That's when she appeared, Karen. Now, if you've ever lived in an HOA neighborhood, you know there's always that one person. Ours was Karen, middle-aged, sun visor always on her head, clipboard in hand, acting like she ran the entire block. She believed she had authority over everyone's lives, and tonight, she decided to flex that imagined power. As the paramedics began checking Emily's vitals, Karen stomped right up to the ambulance. "Excuse me?" she snapped, waving her hands. "You cannot park this ambulance here. You're blocking the street. We have HOA rules, and emergency vehicles are supposed to park at the designated community center lot." I froze, stunned by her audacity. The paramedics ignored her, focused on Emily. But Karen wasn't done. "This is a clear violation," she huffed, pulling out her phone. "I'll be contacting the HOA president and having you fined. You people think just because there's an emergency you can break the rules?" My fists clenched. My wife was in pain, possibly going into early labor, and this woman was lecturing the paramedics about parking rules as they strapped Emily in. Karen leaned into the open ambulance doors. "Are you even supposed to be here?" she said loudly, glaring at the paramedics. "Do you have permits? You can't just have random vehicles." With sirens coming into this neighborhood scaring people, one of the paramedics, clearly frustrated, finally turned to her. "Ma'am, please step back. We're handling a medical emergency." But Karen smirked. "Well, I'm on the HOA board, and this is my street too. I have every right to know what's going on, and besides," she jabbed her finger toward Emily, "she doesn't even look that bad. It's probably just faking it for attention. You people love the drama." My blood boiled. My wife's face was pale, sweat dripping down her forehead. And this woman dared accuse her of faking? I stepped forward, my voice low but furious. "Karen, if you don't back away right now," I swear, before I could finish, another car screeched around the corner. It wasn't just any Corrit, was the sheriff's cruiser. Sheriff Daniels. A tall, broad man with decades of service under his belt stepped out. He was an old friend of mine, but more importantly, he was a nonsense lawman who didn't tolerate foolishness. Karen immediately switched gears, plastering on a fake smile. "Sheriff Daniels," she chirped, waving dramatically. "Thank goodness you're here. These paramedics are disrupting our neighborhood. They parked illegally in this."
"Our woman."
She pointed at Emily, still clutching her stomach, as causing a scene.
"How I die."
To enforce the rules, but they wouldn't listen. Sheriff Daniels raised an eyebrow. Slowly he walked up to her, his boots crunching against the gravel. "Karen," he said evenly, "are you telling me you tried to stop an ambulance from helping a pregnant woman in distress?" Karen puffed up her chest. "I wasn't stopping them. I was just making sure they followed the community guidelines. We can't have chaos every time someone feels a little tummy ache." That was it. Sheriff Daniels' expression darkened. His voice dropped to that stern tone that could make even the bravest man feel like a schoolboy caught in trouble. "Karen," he said, "step away from the ambulance now." But Karen wasn't smart enough to quit while she was ahead. She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You can't order me around, Sheriff. Pay HOA dues. I have rights here." And if she really needed help again, she pointed at Emily, she'd drive herself to the hospital instead of wasting taxpayers' money on sirens and medics. That was the final straw. Sheriff Daniels stepped right up to her, his voice booming. "You listen here? That woman is about to give birth, and you are interfering with a medical emergency. Not only is that immoral, it's also a crime. If you don't shut your mouth and move away, I'll personally charge you with obstruction and have you escorted in handcuffs to jail. Do you understand me? The entire street had gone silent. Neighbors stood frozen in their driveways, watching. The showdown? Karen's smug grin faltered. Why, you wouldn't dare, she stammered. Leaned in closer. Try me. Karen's face turned beet red, but she finally stumbled backward, muttering under her breath. Sheriff Daniels didn't even look at her again. He turned to the paramedics. Get her to the hospital fast. I'll make sure you have a clear path out. I climbed into the ambulance with Emily, my heart pounding. As the doors shut, I caught one last glimpse of Karen standing frozen on the sidewalk, her jaw hanging open as the sheriff barked something into his radio. The sirens blared. We sped off. Thankfully, Emily and the baby were safe. The doctors said it was a scare false labor brought on by stress and dehydration, but they wanted her to rest under observation. I sat by her side, holding her hand, overwhelmed with both relief and anger. Emily whispered softly, Did I really hear Karen yelling at the ambulance? I squeezed her hand. Yeah, but don't worry. Sheriff Daniels handled it. She smiled weakly. Good, because if I had the energy, I would have told her off myself. The next day, I got a call from Sheriff Daniels. Tom, he said with a chuckle. You'll be glad to know I had a long conversation with Karen last night. She's facing an official warning for obstruction of emergency services. If she pulls another stunt like that, she'll be looking at criminal charges. I couldn't help but laugh. I wish I could have seen her face. Oh, you'll hear about it, the sheriff said. Half the neighborhood was watching. Her little HOA reign of terror might be coming to an end, and he was right. Within a week, word spread like wildfire. Neighbors who had long been fed up with Karen's antics finally had the courage to speak up. Stories poured out her threatening letters about lawn decorations, her rants about kids playing too loudly, her constant spying on everyone's business. At the next HOA meeting, a group of residents demanded her removal from the board. She tried to defend herself, claiming she was just enforcing the rules, but nobody bought it. By the end of the month, Karen was voted out, sitting at home weeks later. Emily and I rocked gently on the porch swing, her hand resting on her now calmer belly. You know, she said softly, sometimes it takes a crisis to show people's true colors. I nodded. Karen showed hers all right, and the sheriff made sure she faced the consequences. We both laughed quietly, grateful for the strange twist of fate that turned our emergency into the downfall of a neighborhood tyrant in the end. Emily and our baby were safe. Karen was stripped of her false power, and the neighborhood finally breathed easier. And as for me, I learned something important that night. Sometimes justice doesn't come in a courtroom or a board meeting. Sometimes it arrives in the flashing lights of an ambulance and the booming voice of a sheriff who refuses to let cruelty stand. This story is just the beginning. There's so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.